Hi, this is the series for Ruby's Garden Block of the Month from Vons & Porter. I'm Jenny Kae Parks. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, jennykaequilts.com. But we are going to work on this glorious quilt that you see behind me. The fabrics are from Paintbrush Studios, and you can get the kit from Vons & Porter, and it's just wonderful, beautiful 1930s fabrics. It's lovely. And you are here on the perfect day because this is video number 1. We're going to start, you're starting at the very beginning. We are going to cover this pieced flower block, and I'm going to take you step by step through this. Now, I'm going to tell you something. This quilt behind me, this can be a magnum opus. There are so many details, so many new things that you are going to learn with this series. It's going to be great. Don't miss out on your chance to get it, and just follow along with me as we go through every month. I'm going to be here to take you step by step. So let's get started with our first pieced block. This is our flowered piece block, and pretty simple, but I'm going to break it down for you, and we're going to take it step by step. Slide that off to the side here. Oh, let me go put it there. All right. So the first thing we want to do is to make a little flower unit. And it's basically, it's going to be pretty basic here for you. So I'm going to take my corner blocks, and we're going to flip them up, but I'm going to take my corner blocks, and then I'm going to draw a little line. And that's going to tell me where I'm going to stitch. I love these things. We're going to use them later in the series for the purpose which they were intended, but I have this impromptu way of using them, because what I want to do is I want to draw a line from corner to corner, and I'm going to do it with pencil. Pretty simple, nice easy line to see there, and then I'm going to put it on here, and I'm just going to stitch right on that line. All right. So you just want to sew straight on there. You notice I didn't pin. My theory is you pin to your level of comfort. If you feel like you need to pin, by all means pin. I don't usually worry about it sometimes. It's a small enough space. Okay, you can clearly see the line that I've done, and now we're going to trim a 1/4 inch from that line. So you see I line it up, and I've got a 1/4 inch left there. I'm going to press that. Now what I would suggest here is you're doing as much as you can to, because this is such a light cream that we're working with, you really want to think about pressing to the dark. You notice on here, I didn't press to the dark. There, I pressed to the light. And you might think about just on everything, pressing it the opposite direction. But here, I'm going to continue this way, and I'll show you an alternative way as well. So it's kind of just the same thing. We're going to take this guy and mark him up on the other side. Draw my line. And you can use any kind of mark on here, just as long as you can see it, right? That's the important thing. And I'm going to line them up on this side. It's important to press in between, because if this part wasn't flat, I couldn't sew this one on nicely. So just keep those kinds of details in mind. Okay, so we're going to sew right down that line, and I'm going to start at this end, because there's less bulkiness there, and sometimes I get a better result if I do it that way. There we go. Make sure it stays on track. Ha-ha, nice. Okay. Come back over here and trim. And then press. And you can see we get that cute little point. Ta-da! That's going to be that segment in our flower block. Okay, next step. Now we need to make the leaf section of our flower block. So we need to make some half square triangles. Aha, this is my intended purpose of this little guide, which I just love. Okay, so to do our half square triangle, we need to divide that. And sometimes I forget, it's one of those duh things that you forget, but if you draw it through the lighter colored fabric, draw your markings through the lighter colored fabric instead of the darker ones, it might work out better for you. So it's just something to think about. All right, so you take this seam guide and you line it up. See, I'm going from these lines on here, I'm lining them up corner to corner, the lines in the middle. And then I can come through, mark that way, very carefully, move over to the other side, careful, careful. Ta-da! All right, now I'm going to put that right sides together with my fabric, and I'm going to stitch on that line, just like we did the other one. Put my foot down. And you eyeball it to make sure that it's on track to take you all the way down to the bottom. And then I'm just going to turn my foot around. I'm going to lift up my foot and I'm going to turn the block around. Ta-da! And I'm just going to shoot down the other side. Now you can draw, to do half square triangles, you can draw a line right through the middle, just like we did with the stitch and flip, and then stitch a 1/4 inch from that line. But I'll tell you, I have gotten more consistent results when I use this seam guide than anything else. So I'm sticking with that. You know, if it works, right? Don't change it, man. If it works for you. Okay, so then I come and I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch from those lines that I stitched. And ideally, your ruler should go from corner to corner when you cut. So I'm just going to cut that. And then we're going to press this. And I'm going to press to the dark. Like I was telling you before, I'm going to press to the dark. And I find, too, putting a little heat on it to begin with makes the fabric more compliant for what I want it to do. I'm going to pull that nice and open. There. Lovely. See, look at that. You can see we got our little part that's going to fit in there. Oh, we need to cut off the little dog ears. So you trim off these little extra parts that are sticking out. You don't need them. They're just going to be in your way. So let's get rid of those. Okay. Oh, so we have 2 of those. Oh, I need to press the other one so we can do the block, don't I? So one easy way to tell if you're going to press to the dark, like routine press to the dark, if you put the dark on the top and then flip, pull it back, persuade it to lay down nice and flat. Doesn't want to do it. There we go. Sometimes these little pieces are a little harder to finagle, but you can do it. Look at that. Trim off the dog ears. Beautiful. Okay, so you can see how this block, there's our frame of reference there, how this block is going to go together. Whoops, you got these guys there. And those little ones there. I just piece and assemble it, put it together like that. All right, so let me show you, because this can get a little bit tricky, where you're trying to put these finished ones together. And let me show you something else too. You notice here, it's not exact, right? That doesn't line up exactly. So what you can do, depending on how egregious the mistake is, I tend to think if it's just a tiny bit off, don't worry about it. As long as you keep the points, right? Because the point is the point. And if you can keep the points there, you're good. Don't stress about it too much. If it's going to be like much more than a 1/4 inch that you're off there, then you probably want to trim it. It looks like we could trim it down just a little bit, and somehow it got a little bit off. You know why it's not perfect? Because I'm not a machine. I try, I do really well at a lot of things, but sometimes I just get it off, and you know, that's just going to be the way it has to be sometimes. All right, so we're going to take our inner block here, and we want to line it up there. So we have our leaf unit and our flower unit. Now, we have a trickiness here that we're going to need to deal with. What we want is for these two to line up at the right spot. We want it to hit right there. So we're going to try to make that happen. Let me grab a pin. A couple pins here. So if you line up everything on the block, and I'm going to pinch it at about 1/4 inch in and see what it looks like in there. And that's kind of a good way to tell. I want right there. I want it to line up right there. So let's flip it over and see how it looks. Oh, look at this. Look at that. I have the X. The X marks the spot. What I want to do when I stitch in this direction, I want to go right through that X, and then it will fit. Then it's going to be great. So let me line it up here, and I'm going to peek here. That looks like I might need to bring it up just a tiny bit. Then I'm going to pin, and I'm going to pin on either side of the intersection, not exactly in it. Because what I find, if I pin right exactly on those points, and I try to use that as my guide, I try to use that to hold it stable, that sometimes it can skew the actual point I've been trying to match. So I like to pin on either side. Oh, let me get those silly things out of the way. And let's come over here and sew those together. Now again, people sometimes get really upset or stressed about everything is not lining up exactly on the block when I'm putting it together like this. But I say the point is the point. If you can get the points to match, nobody's going to look underneath and say, oh, those aren't exactly 1/4 inch, honey. You got to do that again. And I say, no. I say, no, you don't have to do that. All right, so I'm going. Oh, take that pin out. Good practices. All right, pin is out. I'm going to stitch right over that X. Look at that. Oh, I'll stop there, get that other pin. Straighten it out on top here. Yeah, and sometimes with the half square triangles, you get one side's a little too big and somehow the other side's a little too small. But if you can match those points, good. And you know, looking at it underneath, and I do that a lot, trying to figure out what did I do wrong this time? How can I fix it? How can I do it better next time? All right, look at that. Let's see how we did. Oh, that is pretty good. That is pretty good. Okay, so that's how you would put these units together. And let me show you the layout of the whole block in assembly. And you have this, you also have this plain center block. And you know, there's so many neat things that you could do with this center block if you wanted to. You could do a little embroidery in there, you know, like a little basket with flowers or something like that. You could put that in there. It would be so cute. Oh, love it. All right. So then you would continue to assemble the block just like so. And I want to show you one other trick that I have, because sometimes as you're sewing everything together, the seams can get all wonky and go every which way. It happens. I know we try it, but it still happens. So what you can do if you need that seam to lay flat, like look at this one. This one, that's an issue right there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to cut part of the seam allowance. Not the whole thing, not through that thread, because then you'll have to start all over again, my friend. I'm just going to cut part of the seam allowance. Now when I press it back, it'll lay flat. And you don't have to rip that out and do it all over again. You can do it just like that. All right, we've tackled our first block, our pieced flower block. Next time, in video 2, we are going to cover the applique flower blocks. Beautiful, you're going to love them, and I got some good tricks with that too. So I will see you next time. Thanks. This lesson of Ruby's Garden Block of the Month is brought to you by Paintbrush Studios, fabrics for your masterpiece.